Welcome to this explainer. Let's just jump right into this, because today we're unpacking something that so many of us experience, but honestly, we rarely have the words to actually describe it. Picture this. You woke up this morning, and the very first thing you felt wasn't excitement, right? It wasn't peace. It wasn't even sadness. It was something so much heavier than all of those things. It was that quiet, crushing weight of just having to do another full day, of having to perform and, well, just be a person again. But you got up anyway. You made the coffee, you answered the messages, and you pushed through it. And somewhere in the middle of that whole daily routine, you probably had a thought that you've never quite said out loud. Something like, I'm not sad, I'm just tired. And we aren't talking about being tired in a way that, an extra hour of sleep on the weekend can fix. We're talking about being tired of the whole shebang. If that lands somewhere true for you, stick with me here. Because what is happening inside you right now actually has a specific name, and much more importantly, it has a very real biological reason. There's this huge disconnect, and it's so frustrating. On the outside, people get the state completely wrong. They look at you and they call it laziness or depression or even ingratitude. Friends and family might see someone who seemingly has everything they need to be fine, and they literally just can't understand why you're not fine. But internally, what's actually happening is a total system shutdown. We're talking exhaustion on a massive systemic level. That painful gap between what everyone else sees and what you actually feel is arguably one of the most draining parts of this whole experience, mostly because it feels completely impossible to explain, even to yourself. All right, moving to section 1, the science of anhedonia.
My main goal right out of the gate is to remove the guilt you might be carrying. We absolutely need to establish that this numbness is a biological state. It's not a character flaw, and it is definitely not a weakness. It all centers around a clinical concept called anhedonia. So it isn't about being sad. It's this incredibly specific, frankly bewildering loss of the ability to feel pleasure at all. You aren't suicidal. You would never hurt yourself, but you just have zero interest in what used to give you joy. This is exactly why the music you used to blast in the car suddenly just sounds like background noise. It's why your absolute favorite foods taste like cardboard. You can literally sit in a room packed with people you deeply love and still feel completely, utterly alone inside your own head. Now, what's super fascinating is what researchers are seeing under the hood here. In brain scans, people experiencing anhedonia show a major drop in activity in the brain's reward center. It basically blunts what scientists call the reward prediction process. Think of that process as your brain's internal hype man saying, hey, this is going to feel amazing, go for it. But without that signal, your motivation completely collapses before pleasure even gets a chance to show up. Really think about what that means. It's not that you don't want to feel things, it's that the exact part of your brain responsible for telling you that anything is worth feeling has simply gone on strike. Let's look at section 2, the functional freeze.
So this brings us to the missing puzzle piece. This explains why you can still go through the motions of your everyday life while feeling like a total ghost on the inside. A functional freeze is this weird state where you remain outwardly functional. You commute to work, you do the laundry, but internally you are experiencing total emotional numbness. And notice how this almost always happens when someone has been subjected to prolonged, relentless stress or trauma, which just completely overloads the nervous system. Your system held on for as long as it possibly could. It dealt with the pressure, the constant disappointment, the endless demands, and then, well, it did what any overloaded system does. It yanked the emergency brake. Your nervous system isn't just acting up randomly here. Your brain literally calculated that the cost of feeling everything was simply way higher than the resources you had left to process it. And here is the tragic, tragic irony of that emergency brake. Let's think of your emotions like a master volume dial on a stereo. The brain's intention was to mute the darkness. It desperately wanted to turn down the pain, the overwhelm, the stress. But the cruelest part of this whole biological mechanism is that the exact same dial that mutes the darkness, it mutes the light too. In its frantic attempt to protect you from pain, your mind accidentally turns down the volume on joy, on connection, and on pleasure. Which brings us to a quote I really, really want you to let sink in. You are not refusing to live. You are exhausted from the labor of surviving. So while the folks around you might just see someone who isn't trying hard enough, the absolute reality is that you are a complex system that has been running on emergency backup power for so long that even those reserves are completely tapped out. You are surviving, and right now, just doing that is taking every single ounce of labor your body has left. Okay, shifting gears to section 3, the motivation myth. We're moving into a more grounded, actionable phase here because we really need to address the absolute biggest trap people fall into when they get stuck in this functional freeze, and that is waiting until you feel better. This is absolutely crucial to understand. Motivation is the result, it is not the starting point. This is the nuance that changes everything. When you're in this frozen state, the default pattern is waiting until you feel like it. You wait to call a friend until you feel better. You wait to get out of bed until you feel motivated. But listen to me, you cannot wait to feel alive before you start living. The feeling comes after the movement, not before it. And seriously, I am not just giving you some cheesy motivational speech right now. This is literally physically how the human brain is wired. Which brings us to section 4, taking small steps forward. Since we know how the brain is wired, we can actually trick it back into gear. The path back isn't some massive, dramatic transformation, and we are keeping expectations incredibly low here to respect your nervous system's limited energy. Based on the science, we can break this down into 3 totally manageable micro steps. Step 1 is gentle movement, Step 2 is one small task, and Step 3 is seeking professional safety. Let's walk through exactly why each of these tiny little actions is so incredibly powerful for a frozen brain. So what's really great about Step 1, gentle movement, is that it requires pretty much zero exertion. You do not have to push yourself hard or suddenly adopt a crazy workout routine. We are talking about something as remarkably simple as a super slow walk or a gentle stretch on the living room floor. Just stepping outside and letting your eyes drift across the horizon actually stimulates the brain chemicals involved in pleasure. It gently reminds your body that it can still generate its own forward momentum, physically proving to your nervous system that movement is safe. Then we have Step 2, one small task. Notice we aren't setting some grand, life-changing goal here. We are talking about one single physical thing you can finish and point to. Wash one single dish. Make your bed. That's it. Why? Because proving to your nervous system that you can complete a task speaks literally the only language your brain currently understands right now. It proves that you still have a little bit of control over your physical environment. And then there's Step 3, professional safety. Talk to someone trained to hold this with you. See, healing doesn't require forcing yourself into activation. A genuinely good therapist isn't going to push you to just feel better faster. Instead, they help create consistent experiences of safety. They help create the exact conditions where your nervous system finally feels safe enough to take off that emergency brake and come back online, slowly updating its response to the present moment. As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to hear this clearly, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The numbness is not the real you. This is not a personal failing on your part. The activities you used to love, they haven't permanently lost their ability to bring you joy. Your brain's ability to receive that joy has just temporarily dimmed, and that absolutely can change. You are not broken. You're simply a system that has been under an enormous amount of pressure, doing exactly what it was designed to do to keep you alive. And honestly, the fact that you are still here watching this, trying your best to understand yourself, it means that emergency brake worked. Something inside of you is still in there, actively looking for a way forward. Which leaves us with one final big question. What happens next? And the answer, as quiet and as small as it needs to be right now, is to just do one small thing today. Not because you suddenly feel like it, but because the part of you that is still here, it's worth showing up for.